Jawan Taylor versus Nick Bosa is one of the preeminent matchups in this game. Jawan Taylor is the right tackle of the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the thing, he's good, but he's also sloppy. He's the most flagged offensive lineman, if not NFL player, in the league this year. And
20 penalties, 20, which are 7 more than the second place finisher. The second place guy in penalties had 13. Jawan Taylor had 20.
If he gets to play a clean game against Nick Bosa, something is I don't want to.
Bill Vinovich is going to be discussed at great length on Monday.
Exactly. This guy hasn't played a clean game all year, so it probably isn't going to start in the Super Bowl against a player the ilk of Nick Bosa. Having said all that, if Nick Bosa can get to Patrick Mahomes once, he will have done his job in this game. Sacking Patrick Mahomes once in a playoff game is a Herculean task. This guy does not get sacked in postseason play. It has not happened throughout basically the entirety of his career. First sack he took was one sack against the Ravens, and that's the first time I think he's been sacked in 2 postseasons. Getting to Mahomes once is start there. Let's not talk about multiple sacks until there's at least one. And if you do see one of Mahomes early, you talk about early signs, what are good omens, bad omens. If this team sacks Mahomes in the first quarter, that's a real good sign. That's a real good sign. Bad sign would be Brock Purdy's passes are being batted down at the line of scrimmage. When that happens, bad things usually follow. So you're right. It's the line of scrimmage is where every football game gets decided, but this one, even more so. It's going to be big. I like how when you asked, Nick Bosa about the line he would be playing, he's like, well, they hold a
lot. You know what? Get that. Jed mentioned it as well. And you know what? The Niners need to hammer home that narrative that these tackles for Kansas City held a lot in the last Super Bowl and have held a lot in the regular season, and put that out there. If I was Shanahan, that's the first thing I would say if I hit the field when I talk to the officials pre-Super Bowl 58 is, hey, guys, are we going to allow, I'm all for, letting them play, but, blatant holds on my defensive end, or basically negate a great player on my roster and negate, and I don't want to see it. So could we at least call this thing fairly today? Because we got plenty of film in Super Bowl 54. I mean, that's not why they lost, but it didn't help. Let's just say that.
Of course it doesn't help when one team is grabbing Nick Bosa and steering him with his shoulder pads. That's sort of an advantage for the other team. And Nick Bosa probably, if the guy he's up against, Jawan Taylor, is the most flagged player in football, I'd even make the argument that Nick Bosa is among the least flagged players in football in terms of the flags that he might have drawn. I think he gets held just about every other play. Of course, the argument has always been there's holding on every play. It's just, do you choose to call it? And there is some truth to that too, but it feels like egregious levels of holding against Nick Bosa are allowed for the sake of quarterback safety or something. It is odd. And neither one of us, there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time just complaining about calls. It's really not the way you and I go about our business, but that's certainly something to look for as this game is unfolding in front of us a couple of Sundays from now. Mooney Ward versus Rashee Rice is just a huge one, Larry. Like, there's a part of me that thinks, well, Travis Kelce's basically the Jerry Rice of tight ends, and saying things out loud like, you got to shut that guy down. Obviously, there's something incredibly historically good about Travis Kelce that prevents him from being shut down. Rashee Rice has been playing very well, but he is not the historical caliber of NFL talent that just, you can't shut that guy down. You can only hope to contain him. And this is where Mooney Ward just has to have a monster afternoon, because if you can really take this game, if you're Steve Wilkes and you're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, you got 4 guys you're mostly worried about, right? Mahomes, Pacheco, Rice, and Kelce.
Yep.
If you can take Rice out of that equation, well, then all of a sudden there's 2 guys to worry about. and you just got closer to winning a Super Bowl. And
and if you've looked since Thanksgiving,
Larry, hold on.
Okay.
I think it's easier to shut down Rashee Rice with Mooney Ward than it might be just Pacheco is totally out of this game plan because the 49ers run defense has bared its fangs and is just stopping everyone 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And again, I think it's going to be easier to close the spigot on Rice than the running game across the board or Travis Kelce. So I hope Mooney Ward can do that.
Yeah, I mean, since they lost to Philly, right? They lost to Philly 21-17 in third week in November. Since that point, if you look at the game log for Rashee Rice, they are going to him in huge number. He had 10 targets the next week against the Raiders, 9 the next week against Green Bay, 10 the next week against Buffalo, 9 the next week against New England, 12 the next week against the Raiders, 6 against the Bengals, and then in these playoffs, 12 against Miami, 4 where he caught all 4 against Buffalo. That was a running game. And then 9 last week against Baltimore. So he's gone for 130. He's gone for 127. He's gone for 107. So, I mean, they don't trust their other receivers. So, when they get in the red zone, they're going to Kelce and they're going to Rice. And so the Niners have to make sure those guys are covered up. And if you can force them to go to somebody besides those 2 guys in the red zone, I think you're going to have done your job.
Kelce and Rice have combined for 43 of the Chiefs' 70 postseason receptions so far this postseason. 61% of all air traffic goes through just those 2 guys. The 49ers defense takes 1 guy out. It's very good. You take both guys out, the parade goes up Market Street.
Well, I don't know if you can take Kelce out, but I will say this. The 49ers have in Fred Warner the best coverage linebacker in the game. And if you know they're going to Kelce, you can tilt your coverage towards him. And this is not the Chiefs of the team that came to Levi's in 2022. And it's sure as hell not the Chiefs team that beat the Niners 4 years ago that had a bevy of different weapons. They're going to those guys. So can you cover them? Can you cover them? And then to me, the other one is, can you cover or can you rush Mahomes so he doesn't escape the pocket? I think that was asked yesterday. How do you defend Mahomes? And I think Bosa said, hey, man, you got to keep him in the pocket because he's looking, especially since late October when they basically said we don't trust anybody else. I think Reed has basically simplified it and said, hey, look, we're going to hand it to Pacheco. We're going to throw it to Rice. We're going to throw it to Kelce, or you're going to run. And so he's looking to run, I think, more than ever. So keeping him hemmed in the pocket is absolutely one of the biggest objectives of Super Bowl Sunday.
It was a talking point of the broadcast crew in the AFC title game that, the Ravens believe that Patrick Mahomes on his scrambles gets a little too aggressive, a little too late into his slide, in which case, if you can take a shot on Mahomes, take it. That's basically what the Ravens told the CBS broadcast crew their plan was, because they talked about it during the game. It's a much more, shall we say, delicate way of going about it than the way Mark Chmura was talking about playing. When you got a chance to put a lick on somebody, don't worry about the flag that might come behind it. Take your shot. Like when Dre Greenlaw sees Travis Kelce coming across the middle, he's got to give Travis Kelce something to think about. Dre Greenlaw, if he's got a shot on Travis Kelce, you take it. So I have nothing but respect for Travis Kelce. The guy he really is. He's the Jerry Rice of tight ends. He's the greatest receiving tight end of all time. What a Super Bowl of tight ends we got. We got the greatest fully formed, functioning tight end in the league in George Kittle, Mr. Do-It-All. George Kittle could be the right tackle for half the teams in this league. He's such a good blocker. And then you got Travis Kelce, who has already now caught more postseason balls than Jerry Rice did. He is prolific. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And what I can't believe, And I get maybe this is something that you enjoyed when you were, covering Rice and rooting for Rice. And um, how is he so open all the time? Every single team's defensive coordinator, I'm assuming, is at least decent enough at their job to think like, we got to slow down Travis Kelce. Let's pay a little attention to him. I imagine much of defense's focuses are on Travis Kelce every single time you're playing the Chiefs. Yet there Travis Kelce is again in every game that I watch, Larry, running wide open, sitting down in a zone where there isn't a player within 8 yards of him. Travis could put both of his arms out and start spinning like he's a teenage girl at a Taylor Swift concert on the lawn. Just he can start spinning around and he wouldn't even touch anybody. He's so wide open. You cannot give him free release off the line. You got to hit him on the line of scrimmage.
That's a big one.
You got to hit him on the line of scrimmage, and then you basically, I think, if you're Steve Wilks, you tell Fred Warner, if this guy goes to the bathroom, I want you to go with him. Like, you can forget about defending the run, Fred. I don't want you to look at Patrick Mahomes all day. Your job is to stay on top of Travis Kelce, not around him, on top of him. And Fred, like you said, Fred Warner has the talent to do it.
Well, they have to.
The chess piece that can get that done.
Did you see JT O'Sullivan's breakdown?
I have not.
Week?
I've not.
So it's funny because JT O'Sullivan, this was a major theme of his breakdown of Chiefs Ravens, that teams, and the Ravens continuously allowed Kelce to get a free release off the line of scrimmage. And the Niners can't allow that. They've got to muscle him at the line of scrimmage. They got to interrupt his rhythm, because the bottom line is they play backyard ball. Mahomes knows Kelce. Kelce knows Mahomes. They really, really are on the same page.
Right. There's the play that's called, and then there's the play that happens.
Right. He's got a great sense. They've got a great sense of each other. Mahomes has got a great sense of where Kelce's going to be. It makes it nearly impossible to defend. So the very first thing you have to do is you have to hit Travis Kelce coming off the line of scrimmage and interrupt that rhythm immediately. And if you do, I think that's the beginning of defending him.